Hello again, and welcome back to The Night Reader. I'm your storyteller tonight, and wherever you're listening from, I hope you're safe, warm, and not alone in the dark, unless you want to be. If you're new here, take a moment to subscribe, give this story a like, and leave a comment with where you're tuning in from, and what time the night found you. You'd be surprised how many of us are listening, together, apart. Now then, dim your lights, wrap yourself in something soft, and take a slow breath. Because tonight's story begins with an old house, a missing man, and something that waits behind locked doors, whispering to be let back in. This story is called The Hollow Guest, and it begins with a visit that should never have been made. I arrived just before dusk. The sun had dipped behind the mountains, but there was still enough light in the sky to see the outline of the house, tall, narrow, and swallowed at the edges by the forest. It was the kind of house that looked like it had stories to tell, or secrets it had buried. I hadn't seen my cousin Elijah in years. Not since the Christmas we both drank too much and argued about something neither of us remembered the next day. But we were close once, childhood close. The kind of bond built on forts in the woods, shared nightmares, and late-night whispers about the shadows under the bed. 3 months ago, Elijah bought this house, a decaying Victorian set deep in the Vermont countryside, cheap, isolated, perfect for someone trying to disappear. And then, 2 weeks ago, he did. No goodbye, no warning, just a voicemail. One message, 9 seconds long. He sounded tired, dry, hollow. He said, "If something comes looking for me, don't answer it. And don't listen too long. I'm sorry." That was it. And now I was here because I couldn't leave it alone. The gravel crunched beneath my tires as I pulled into the drive. Trees pressed in on either side, tall, too close, their branches like bony fingers above the roof. The house didn't look abandoned, but it didn't look lived in either. The front porch sagged at the middle. One shutter hung at an angle like a broken limb. Every window was shut tight, curtains drawn. The mailbox was crammed full, but the flag was never raised. I parked, killed the engine, stepped out into the cold. There was something about the air, still, but not silent, like the forest had inhaled and forgotten how to exhale. I walked up the porch steps, each one groaning under my weight. At the door, I hesitated. The key Elijah had mailed me felt warm in my hand. I told myself it was just nerves. Then I unlocked the door. It opened with a sound like something exhaling, slow, dragged from deep within the house. Not wind, not hinges. I stepped inside. The first thing I noticed was the smell. Dust, mildew, and something else, something faint, sour, like fruit that had rotted and dried again. It coated the back of my throat. Made me want to swallow, but not breathe. The lights didn't work. Of course they didn't. I clicked on the flashlight I'd brought, and its narrow beam cut through the dark like a scalpel. The foyer was narrow, with wallpaper that had curled at the corners. A coat rack stood crooked near the stairs, still holding Elijah's winter jacket. Past that, the house opened into a sitting room, fireplace cold, books stacked high in every corner. Most of them were old. Some didn't have titles. A few looked handmade, stitched together from scraps of parchment and canvas. The fireplace mantel held a row of framed photographs, all of them face down. I didn't turn them over. The kitchen was next. Clean, but in the way empty things are clean. There were no dishes, no crumbs, no signs of life. Just a single black candle in the center of the table, burned halfway down. The wax had melted sideways, like it had cried in the dark. I went upstairs. The second floor had 4 rooms, each with the doors slightly open, as if they'd been waiting for someone to peek inside. The bathroom mirror was covered by a sheet. The guest bedroom had a line of salt across the threshold. The floorboards creaked wrong there, not where they should have, but when. Delayed. Echoing. Elijah's room was last. The door was locked, but something inside scratched, once, softly, as I put my hand on the knob. I didn't open it. Not that night. Instead, I went back downstairs, turned the flashlight off, sat on the couch, tried to convince myself this was just a place, just wood and nails and forgotten air. Then I heard it, knocking, from the front door. 3 soft raps. I didn't move. Another knock, slower. I stood, crossed the room, peered through the peephole. No one there. I opened the door anyway. The porch was empty. But on the mat, where I'd wiped my boots earlier, was a letter. A single envelope. No stamp, no address, no name. Just one word, written in looping black ink. Guest. I picked it up. Inside was a card. The paper was thick, software almost warm, and on it was a short message, printed in a hand I knew instantly. It was Elijah's handwriting. Don't let it in. Whatever face it wears, you'll know it by the way it watches you sleep. I looked up. The forest was silent. The porch was still. But behind me, inside the house, a floorboard creaked. And I realized something I hadn't dared admit until then. I wasn't alone in the house. The sound came from upstairs. Deliberate. Weight behind it, like someone taking a single step and pausing to listen. I didn't move at first. My hand was still on the doorknob. The envelope with Elijah's note felt heavier than it should have, like the paper had soaked in something from the house itself. My pulse was loud in my ears, but the rest of the night held its breath. Another creak. Same spot. Directly above me. I took a slow step back and closed the front door, gently, as if any sound might invite whatever was listening. I didn't lock it. Somehow, it felt wrong to lock the outside out when the real threat was already inside. I turned in the dark and faced the stairs. The flashlight lay on the couch where I'd left it. I didn't want to cross the room to get it, because if I took my eyes off the stairs, another step. Same rhythm. Not walking. Waiting. The house moaned with the cold. Or at least I told myself it was the cold. But something about the air had changed. It wasn't heavier. It was closer. Like the house had pulled itself tighter around me. I climbed the stairs slowly. Each one let out a reluctant sigh beneath my weight. When I reached the landing, the air felt warmer, but only in the way closed spaces feel warm. Stale and old, like a breath held too long. All 4 doors were the same as before, slightly open, watching. I turned to the one I knew had made the sound, the bathroom. The sheet still covered the mirror, but now the corners had peeled loose. Not like something had pulled them, more like something beneath had pushed back. The door creaked as I stepped inside. My fingertips brushed the light switch, but when I flicked it, nothing happened. Just a soft click, swallowed by the quiet. I reached out and grabbed the corner of the sheet. It felt damp, warm, not like cloth should feel in a cold, dead house. I pulled it down in one motion. Behind it was not my reflection, not fully. It was me, my face, my jacket, my eyes. But I wasn't standing where I should have been. The room in the mirror was wrong. The background didn't match. Where there should have been tile, there was wood, warped, blackened. The light above the mirror in the reflection was flickering, even though in the real room it was dark. And my reflection was smiling, slow, wide, wrong. I took a step back. The reflection did not. It stood still, head tilted just a little, like it was listening, like it had been waiting for someone to look. My heart hammered in my chest. I reached for the sheet again. I needed to cover it, to make it go away. The reflection raised a hand. I froze. It wasn't mirroring me anymore. Its fingers curled, beckoning. Then it pressed a finger to its lips. A long, deliberate shush. Behind me in the real room, something whispered. I spun, but nothing was there. When I looked back at the mirror, the reflection was gone. Only the room remained. Empty, still flickering, and in the bottom corner of the glass, etched in fine, almost imperceptible scratches, were 3 words. He is listening. I left the bathroom and closed the door behind me, locked it with the small, rusted latch. Not that I believed it would do anything. Back in the hallway, the guest bedroom door was now wide open. The line of salt had been disturbed. Blown, maybe, or scuffed by something that didn't walk quite right. The edges were smeared into soft arcs. I didn't go inside. Instead, I turned to Elijah's room, still locked, still silent. I stared at the door, then at the key Elijah had sent me. The one I'd used for the front door. I slid it into the knob. It fit, but it didn't turn. Not right away. I twisted harder. There was a click. Not from the lock, but from behind the door. A sound like a footstep. Not wood, though. Stone. I stopped, turning the key. Listened. Then, nothing. Stillness. And then, as if spoken from the other side of the door, not shouted, not whispered, just stated plainly like a fact. It's wearing his face now. I backed away. Nearly fell down the stairs. The flashlight was still on the couch. I grabbed it, turned it on, and shined it up the stairs. Nothing. No figure. No face. But a small shape sat on the bottom step. A toy. Wooden. Old. A carved figure in a little black coat, mouth open as if mid-laugh. I hadn't brought it. I didn't touch it. That night, I tried to sleep on the couch. The flashlight tucked under my arm. Elijah's note on the floor beside me, unfolded. I read it over and over. Don't let it in. Whatever face it wears, you'll know it by the way it watches you sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the mirror. Every time I drifted off, I felt the eyes. And just past sleep, in that thin space where the mind begins to drift, I heard footsteps above me again. Only now, they weren't alone. They were following something, or someone. A second set of steps, quicker, lighter, like something was chasing itself. Inside the house didn't sleep. Even when it went quiet, it wasn't resting. It was waiting. The floorboards didn't settle. They listened. The walls didn't creak. They whispered. Every surface, every object, every draft from a half-sealed window felt like it was watching me hold still and try to pretend I wasn't afraid. By morning, the toy on the stair was gone. I hadn't touched it. I hadn't even gone near it. But sometime in the hours I spent half awake on the couch, eyes fixed on the darkened ceiling, the little wooden man had vanished. I should have left then. Should have packed my bag, locked the door, driven to the nearest town and called Elijah from a hotel. But I didn't. I think part of me already knew this wasn't something I could walk away from. The house had seen me. I'd read the note. I'd opened the mirror. I'd heard the voice on the other side of Elijah's bedroom door. And now the house knew my name. It began that morning with the sound of metal, a slow scrape across the floor above me. I followed the noise back to the upstairs landing. Every door was closed now. Even the bathroom, which I'd locked myself. But something about the hallway felt stretched, like there were too many shadows between the door frames, and not enough corners to explain them. Elijah's door was still locked. I didn't touch it. Instead, I opened the guest room. The salt line was gone completely now. Not just disturbed. Gone. No trace of it. Just smooth, cold wood where I'd laid it the night before. Inside the room, everything was just as I left it. Suitcase on the chair. Blanket folded. Except the mirror above the dresser. It had fogged over, and something had been written in the fog from the inside. One word. Knock. I backed out of the room and shut the door. I didn't even breathe until the latch clicked. Something was moving in the house, not just around it, in it. And whatever it was, it knew which door I hadn't opened. I went back downstairs and opened the coat closet beneath the stairs. There was no light inside. The switch didn't work. I clicked it 3 times before giving up. Just more silence. But as I stood there, something caught my eye. In the corner near the floor, behind the hanging coats and boxes, a line of scratches, long, deep, and curved, like something had been dragged along the inside wall. There was a small square of the wood paneling that didn't match, a faint seam in the wall hidden behind the coats. I pulled everything out and ran my hand along the surface. There was a catch, a hidden latch, worn nearly smooth. I pressed, and the wall shifted. Not swung open, shifted. Like it had never been a door at all, just a section of the house that decided to remember its other shape. Behind it was a narrow corridor, not finished. Just cold brick and packed dirt, like a root cellar or crawl space. A thin, rusted chain hung from the ceiling, holding a bare bulb that flickered once and went out. And at the end of the tunnel, barely visible, a second door. Steel. Bolted. Not just locked. Sealed. Iron crossbar. 3 chains, and a series of symbols I didn't recognize carved along the frame. Circles inside circles. Angled lines. A crude eye scratched just above the knob. This door wasn't meant to be opened. Not by accident. Not by anyone who didn't already know what was behind it. But the thing that stopped me wasn't the carvings. It was the sound I heard as I stepped closer. Knock. Once. Slow. Deliberate. From the other side. I turned and left. Fast. No pretense of calm. I shoved the wall back into place and piled the coats in front of it like that might undo what I'd seen. Back in the living room, I sat on the couch and tried to think. That's when I noticed the change in the window. Not the glass. The view. Last night when I looked outside, I could see the trees, the gravel road, the edge of the woods at the bottom of the slope. Now, the same view was there, but something was off. Wrong, in a way I couldn't name. The trees were too still. The sky had gone pale, not like dawn, but like a photograph with the color drained out. And the road was gone. Just gone. No gravel, no tracks, no sign of the path I'd driven in on. Just more trees, more woods, as if the house had swallowed the way out. I tried the front door. It opened fine. No sound, no resistance. But the air outside didn't smell like it had the day before. No dirt, no leaves, just dust, and something sweet, too sweet. I closed the door again. That's when I heard my name, spoken plainly, from upstairs. Not a whisper, not a scream, just a voice I hadn't heard in 10 years. My brother Elijah. Simon? I froze. He said it again. Simon, are you there? I don't know where I am. My throat went dry. My legs moved before I could stop them. I climbed the stairs and stood in front of his bedroom door, pressed my ear to the wood. Nothing. Then, please let me out. It sounded like him, exactly like him, but too clear, too clean, no echo, no panic, no breath. I placed my hand on the knob. Simon. Again, but this time something in the voice cracked, like it was learning how to sound like him. Then, under the voice, almost buried, a second sound, a whisper, and I swear it came from inside my own ear. Wrong door. I stumbled back. Elijah's door didn't open, but I knew which one would. The hidden one, the chain door beneath the stairs. And the thing that was knocking on the other side, it knew I'd found it. I didn't sleep. Not even for a minute. I sat on the living room floor, back against the cold fireplace stone, staring at the coat closet, watching for the smallest shift, the slightest sound. But the house had gone quiet again. A deep, unnatural quiet. The kind that feels full, like something is holding its breath on the other side of the silence, The air felt too dense. My thoughts, heavy. And every time I blinked, I saw that word from the mirror again. Knock. By dawn, the light outside had turned gray and wet. Not from rain, just a sour, colorless dim that seeped into everything. It looked like morning, but nothing moved. No birds, no wind. Even the trees stood still, like they were listening. I opened my phone again. No signal. But a new message had appeared in my notes app, one I hadn't typed. It said, "Don't open the door. It's not him." That's all. Just those words. No timestamp. No clue how it got there. I stared at it for 10 minutes. Then I deleted it. Not because I didn't believe it, but because part of me did. I needed to understand. Not just what was happening, but why this house? Why me? Why Elijah? So I started searching the place again, room by room, looking for records, photos, anything. The house didn't make it easy. Every drawer I opened had too much dust, like it hadn't been touched in decades. But the furniture wasn't that old. No photos, no papers. Just strange little gaps. Places where things should be, but weren't. A whole home staged to look like someone had lived here without any sign that they actually had. Until I checked the attic. The stairs up were a narrow spiral, almost hidden behind the linen closet. The kind of stairs that seemed too steep, too crooked. Halfway up, the air changed again, thinner, colder. Like altitude, but not. The attic wasn't dark. The light was already on. A single bulb hanging from the rafters, swaying gently even though the air was still. There was only one object in the room. A trunk. Old, metal-bound, painted black, the paint blistered and peeling. I stood over it for a long time before opening it. My hand hesitated on the latch, not out of fear, but something deeper. Something like recognition. Like part of me already knew what I'd find inside. I opened it. Inside, a single object wrapped in linen, stained dark with age. I unfolded the cloth and found a mask, made of wood, pale, smooth as bone. Hollow eye holes, no mouth. I picked it up. The second I touched it, I felt pressure behind my eyes, like a memory I couldn't access, pressing hard against the back of my skull. A thrum in the floor, a weight in the air. Then I heard footsteps. Not above, not below, but inside the walls. Measured, deliberate, coming down the attic stairs. I dropped the mask and shut the trunk, ran. I reached the bottom just as the sound passed behind the drywall, not chasing me, just moving, exploring. I didn't wait. I tore open the coat closet and pulled everything out. The hidden wall was still there, still closed, but this time, when I pressed the latch, it opened faster, as if it had been waiting. And the corridor beyond wasn't just cold now. It breathed. A low pulse of air like a tunnel beneath the ocean. The bulb on the ceiling flickered once, and held. I stepped inside. The air changed with every step, from cold to warm to wet, like walking through a series of lungs. The door at the end was still chained shut, but the carvings were different. They'd grown. More symbols, more lines, like fresh scars pressed into the iron. And the eye above the handle? It was bleeding. Not blood, not paint. Something darker, thicker. I stepped closer, and something whispered behind me. Not a voice, not even a word, just a sound, a breath, a recognition. The chain rattled once, and then, from the other side, a second knock. Knock, knock, twice. I stepped back. The sound came again, but this time, it echoed. Not from the door, from behind me, from upstairs, from the mirror. I ran back into the hall. The bulb behind me went out. The coat closet door swung shut on its own. And when I turned toward the stairs, the mirror from the guest room had been moved. Now, it sat at the bottom of the staircase, and something was moving behind the glass. The mirror shouldn't have been there. I hadn't touched it. Hadn't heard anyone move it, but there it was, propped upright at the base of the stairs, and behind the glass, not a reflection. A hallway, not mine. This one was longer, darker. The walls were concrete, lined with old pipes and rusted light fixtures. It looked like something out of a maintenance tunnel, the kind that shouldn't be anywhere near a house like this. Definitely not inside a mirror. At the end of the hallway stood a man. Or something wearing the shape of one. He was tall, dressed in black, hands at his sides. No visible features, just a blurred face, like someone had taken sandpaper to a photo. But his head was tilted slightly, and I got the sickening feeling that he could see me just fine. And then he stepped forward, not in the mirror, toward it. I stumbled back, heart pounding in my throat. The lights above me flickered again, and when they came back on, the mirror was gone. I don't mean it had been moved. I mean it was gone. Just wall. I checked the guest room. The mirror wasn't there either. No broken glass, no drag marks, just a faint smell, like copper and wet leaves. And then I heard the door creak. The one upstairs. Elijah's room. I crept up the staircase slowly, every step feeling louder than it should have been. The door was ajar, just enough for a sliver of dark to pour through. And inside, I could hear something moving. Not footsteps, not breathing, scratching, like nails on paper, over and over. I pushed the door open. The room was empty. No Elijah, no drawings, just a thick layer of dust on everything. Like no one had stepped inside in years. The bed had no mattress. The closet hung open, but the shelves were bare. And on the floor, where the mirror used to be, something was written in chalk. It wasn't English. Not Latin either. I didn't recognize the language. It wasn't letters so much as symbols. Circles and spires and something like teeth, scrawled in tight spirals, over and over, with lines connecting each pattern to a central shape. A crude drawing of a mask. The same shape I found in the attic. I took a step forward and the floor groaned loud enough to make me stop. Then, from beneath the boards, a soft tap, tap, tap. Like someone knocking from underneath, I bolted. Back down the stairs, through the kitchen, out the back door, and into the cold morning air. I didn't stop until I hit the tree line. My breath clouded out in front of me like smoke. From there, the house looked wrong. The windows, too dark. The roof line, slightly off. It was as if the house was holding its true shape only when you weren't looking directly at it. I paced the woods until sundown, and when I finally returned, the house had changed again. The front door was unlocked, and waiting in the center of the living room floor was a photo album, old, leather-bound, the kind with yellowed pages and tissue paper between them. I opened it slowly. The first photo was black and white, a family standing outside this house. Same shape, same porch, but older. Much older. Father, mother, 2 children. Faces all crossed out in ink. The next page, the same family, seated at dinner. Faces still crossed out. The next, only the children. One in bed, the other drawing at a desk. Still no faces. The next page was blank. Then, the final image. A mirror. Just the mirror. Standing alone in an empty room. And, written in the space beneath it, in the same elegant handwriting I'd seen carved into the door beneath the closet. He comes in silence. He leaves a face behind. I didn't remember falling asleep. One moment I was staring at the photo of the mirror. The next, darkness. Cold. The kind that fills your bones. I woke up on the floor. The album was gone. So was the light. The fireplace had gone out. And the electricity, too. The house was darker than it had ever been, and silent in a way that pressed on my ears, like the air had thickened while I slept. I stood up slowly. Outside the windows, Nothing. Not even moonlight. Just black. And then I saw it. On the hallway wall opposite the stairs. A smear. At first I thought it was blood, but it was darker, thicker, like oil mixed with ink. It stretched from the floor to the ceiling, a single vertical streak, and at the center, a face, not painted, not drawn, impressed, as if someone had pressed their face into the wall and melted into it. You could see the shape of the nose, the eyes, the mouth, open in a silent scream. And beneath the streak, written in the same dark fluid, 5 words. You left the door open. My stomach dropped. I ran to the closet, the one hiding the staircase. The wall was gone. No door, no bricks, no iron gate. Just an open tunnel leading down into blackness. I stared into it. Nothing moved. But I could hear something. A rhythm. Not footsteps. Not a voice. Breathing. Long, slow breaths rising from deep below the house. The kind of breath that didn't come from lungs. It sounded more like the air itself was alive. I should have run. But something was pulling me forward again. Not fear. Not even curiosity. Obligation. I grabbed the flashlight from the kitchen drawer and stepped into the tunnel. The floor was stone. Cold. The walls were carved. Not dug. Like they'd been shaped by hands that didn't need tools. Every few feet another symbol appeared. A mask, a door, a mirror. Some I didn't recognize. I walked for what felt like 20 minutes before the tunnel opened into a large chamber. And at the center, something stood beneath a tarp, 7 feet tall, human-shaped, not human. I approached slowly. The breathing was louder now, all around me. I reached out and pulled the tarp away. It was a statue, or something close to one. A figure made of plaster and wax, posed like a man in prayer. Its hands were fused together. Its face was blank, no features at all, just smooth, round flesh with no eyes, no nose, no mouth. But on its chest, my name, carved deep into the wax, Jonah. And beneath it, 2 words, hollow guest. I stepped back. The walls began to hum. Then the tunnel behind me groaned, a sound so low it made my teeth ache. And I wasn't alone. Shadows moved in the corners of the chamber, figures that didn't walk so much as drift. Their arms were long, too long, their heads covered in burlap, just like in the dream. They didn't look at me. They didn't have to. I ran. Back through the tunnel, the flashlight flickering. I didn't stop until I burst back into the house and slammed the closet shut. And even then, I could feel them behind the wall, watching. That night, I boarded the door shut. I tried to leave. I really did. But the car wouldn't start. The key wouldn't turn. The windows wouldn't roll down. And when I looked in the rearview mirror, there was something sitting in the back seat. A mask. Smooth. Pale. Hollow. Just resting there. Waiting. I didn't touch the mask. I left the car as fast as I could, not even bothering to close the door behind me. The cold air outside felt better than the air in that car. Thicker somehow. Electric. Back inside the house, I tried the phone. Dead. No dial tone. No signal on my cell. Just a blank screen and the hum of silence. Every instinct told me to get out, to walk if I had to, just follow the road until I reached town. But the road was gone. Where there had been a gravel driveway, now stood grass, tall, wild, and untouched, and behind me the house had changed again. The windows were blacked out, the porch light gone, and the front door was missing. No handle, no hinges, just smooth wooden boards where an entrance used to be. I circled the house in disbelief. No back door, no basement entrance, no garage, just walls. The only opening left, the one I had nailed shut the night before. The closet door, the one that led downward. I should have panicked. I should have screamed, but instead, I walked back into the house and sat at the kitchen table. And I waited. It didn't take long. The first knock came just after midnight. Not on a door. There was no door. But on the walls themselves. 3 soft knocks. Deliberate. Like someone reminding you they're still there. I didn't answer. Instead, I walked into the living room and sat on the couch. And there, on the coffee table, a new envelope. Just like before. Unmarked. White. Placed gently in the center of the table like it had always belonged there. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a single photo. Me. Asleep on the couch. That same couch, same clothes, same room, same everything. Except, standing behind me in the photo, just barely visible in the hallway's shadow, was the outline of a tall figure. Head tilted. Arms limp at its sides. Wearing a mask. I dropped the photo and turned around. Nothing there. But the hallway was darker than it had been. Like it was swallowing the light. The next morning, something new appeared. Scratched into the inside of the kitchen window, backwards, so you had to look at it through the reflection, were 5 words. You are wearing it now. I ran to the mirror, not the guest room one. That was still gone, but the one in the bathroom. And for a moment, just a moment, I thought it was a joke. My reflection looked normal, my face, my eyes. But then, it blinked late, like it was trying to remember how. I moved my hand. The reflection followed. Too slow. It smiled. I didn't. And then, I swear to you, it whispered. Not out loud, not from its mouth, but in my head. You never left. You were always here. I smashed the mirror with the first thing I could find. A candlestick. Glass scattered across the tile like ice. And there, on the other side of the broken frame, was the hallway from before. The one in the mirror, with the pipes. And at the far end, a door. This time slightly open. I should have run. But instead I reached through the shattered glass and felt air. Cold. Real. The hallway on the other side wasn't just a reflection anymore. It was waiting. I should have hesitated. Should have stopped and reminded myself that what I was doing, what I was about to step into, couldn't be real. But the moment I reached through the broken mirror and felt the air on the other side, cooler and heavier than the house behind me, there was no turning back. It was real. And I was already inside. The hallway beyond the mirror wasn't long, maybe 20 feet. The ceiling arched overhead like the inside of a rib cage, curved and narrow with old iron pipes weaving along the walls like veins. Every few steps, a vent hissed steam across the floor, making the air thick and metallic. It smelled like something that had been underground too long. Wet earth and rust and something sour. At the far end was the door. The same one I'd seen in the photographs. It looked like it had been built centuries ago. Heavy wood, scorched black around the edges, with a tarnished brass handle, and a strange carving at its center. A face again. This one had no mouth, just hollow eyes. I reached for the handle. It turned without resistance. The door creaked open to reveal a room lit by dozens of tall candles. The floor was stone, the walls lined with empty picture frames, and at the center a wooden chair. Sitting in the chair was a mannequin. Or at least, that's what I thought at first. It was human-shaped, human-sized, but its surface was bone-white and cracked, like porcelain. One arm was missing below the elbow. Its head was turned slightly toward me, as if it had been listening before I arrived. And resting on its shoulders was the mask. The same one I had seen in my car. Pale, smooth, hollow. I stepped forward, and the room darkened like the candles were retreating from the walls. The mannequin didn't move, but something behind it did. Another figure. barely visible in the shadows. This one was taller, wearing black, holding something in its hands, a long frayed rope, stained dark at one end. It didn't speak, but it raised one hand slowly and pointed toward the mask. I don't know why I did it. I stepped forward, I reached out, and I took the mask from the mannequin. The porcelain figure slumped forward as if relieved. I held the mask in my hands. It was heavier than I expected, cold. On the inside, a message was etched along the edge in tiny, neat letters. If you wear me, you stay. I turned it over. There was a second inscription, barely legible. If you don't, they come. The candles flickered violently. The shadow stepped back, and the mannequin behind me twitched. Its head jerked to the side, a sharp, stuttering movement like a puppet on broken strings. Then again, and again. I backed away, still holding the mask, and the door behind me slammed shut. I was locked in. The mannequin began to rise. The crack in its side deepened. Its limbs moved unnaturally. No muscles, no grace, just brittle angles and slow, forced movement. It turned its blank face toward me and whispered. Not through its mouth. It had none, but through the room, through the air. He wore it. Now he walks hollow. The candles went out. I couldn't see, but I could feel it. Something moving closer. Something that didn't walk. It dragged. Its breath scraped the walls. I slipped the mask into my coat pocket and reached for the walls, searching for a way out. My hand brushed something warm. Not stone, not wood, skin, and then a voice. Right behind me. Your face fits better than his. I froze. The voice behind me was low, guttural, like the rumble of a storm trapped beneath the earth. And it wasn't just one voice. It was a chorus of whispers, like 1,000 hushed conversations echoing through my head, all speaking at once. Some of the voices were distorted, low and rasping, others soft and inviting, like the words of an old friend calling from the other side of the door. Your face fits better than his, the voice repeated, though it was not a comforting statement. It was something far colder, something more intentional. I took a step forward, pulling my hand from whatever had brushed against my skin, and suddenly the floor beneath me groaned as if it had just woken from a long slumber. The wooden beams creaked, and the air in the room grew thick, more suffocating, as if the walls themselves were closing in. I couldn't move. Not because I was paralyzed by fear, though that was a part of it. No, it was something deeper. It was as if something unseen was pulling me toward the center of the room, dragging my limbs and forcing me to stay within reach of the shadowed figure now lurking in the darkened corner. I wanted to run. I should have run, but I couldn't. I reached into my pocket, my fingers curling around the mask. I felt it there, cold and solid. But there was something else now. The edges of the mask seemed to hum beneath my touch, as if it had felt my hand on it before, as if it were waiting for me. The figure in the corner stirred. Its shape grew larger, more defined. I felt a heavy, oppressive weight on my chest, like the air had thickened with each passing second. The whispering grew louder, almost unbearable, and yet somehow I could still make out words. You have no choice. Not now. It's already too late. The voice was coming from everywhere. It was in the walls, in the ceiling, in the very air I breathed. It was surrounding me, suffocating me. Each word was like a hook, digging deeper into my mind, pulling me closer to the source of the sound. And then, the figure spoke again. Its voice was a low, shuddering rasp. Take it, or you will become one of us. The room felt smaller now. The air was colder. My heart pounded in my chest, but no matter how I tried to move, I was rooted in place. The figure's shape was clearer now, tall and unnaturally thin. Its arms were elongated, the hands curling into claw-like shapes. as if they hadn't seen human use in centuries. Its face, or lack of face, was covered by a mask. The same hollow mask I had taken from the mannequin. I glanced down at the mask in my hand, and as if on instinct, I felt my fingers twitch. I wanted to put it on. I didn't know why, but the urge was overwhelming. There was a part of me that resisted, that fought against it, but it was drowned out by the flood of voices urging me to take the final step. The figure in the corner began to move, its steps slow but deliberate. The scraping of its feet against the stone floor echoed in the hollow space. "You are already one of us, Jonah." The words echoed in my head like a final confirmation, a verdict of some kind. "Come closer. Let us complete what has already been begun." The mask seemed to pulse in my hand. I took a step back, but the air in the room seemed to pull me forward, and suddenly, the distance between me and the figure seemed too small. It was as if the room itself had contracted, closing in on me like a trap. I had no choice. I raised the mask to my face. As I did, the whispering reached a fever pitch, and a cold, sharp sensation gripped my entire being. The mask in my hands was no longer cold. It was burning. A searing heat radiated from it, and for a split second I felt the briefest moment of pain as the porcelain edges pressed against my skin. But then, as soon as the mask made contact, everything went still. The whispers faded, the oppressive air lifted, and for a moment, there was only silence. Then the room shifted. The world around me twisted and contorted as though the very fabric of reality was bending and folding in on itself. I staggered, my vision blurring as the walls of the room seemed to stretch out and contract, like a living thing. But the figure was no longer in the corner. It was standing directly in front of me. Its face, covered by the mask, was staring at me or through me. I couldn't tell. The hollow eyes seemed to pierce into my soul, and for the first time, I felt the coldness seep into my bones, deeper than any physical chill. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. It was as if the mask had taken control of me, as if it had become part of me, a weight on my skin that I could never remove. The figure leaned forward, its mouth opening wide. But there was no voice this time. There was only the sound of something ripping. I felt a sharp, agonizing pain in my chest, as if my heart had been torn from its place. And then I heard it. That same horrible, scraping sound, like bone scraping against bone, like something being dragged against the floor. And then I saw it. It wasn't the figure in front of me. It was me. Or something that looked like me. Standing in the doorway just behind the figure was a reflection, a hollow reflection. It was wearing the mask. Its eyes were empty. Its mouth was open in an eternal scream. And its hand, the hand of the reflection was reaching out to me. "You are the hollow one now," it whispered, the words coming not from its lips but from everywhere. "The mask has claimed you." The reflection moved first. Its hand, stretched out toward me, seemed to flicker between realities. One moment it was still, frozen in that cold, eternal gesture. And the next, it was right in front of me, its fingers outstretched as though trying to claim me. I wanted to pull away, to escape, but the mask, that horrible burning thing, kept me rooted in place. It didn't matter how much I tried to turn my head to break free. The weight of the mask seemed to grow heavier, with each passing second, sinking deeper into my skin, as if it was meant to fuse with me, to become part of me in ways I couldn't understand. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat, but it wasn't my heartbeat anymore. It was slow, uneven, like something else had taken my place. The reflection's fingers finally brushed against my arm. Its touch was cold, unnaturally cold, and when it made contact, I felt the room shift again, as though the very air had thickened, becoming denser, heavier, more suffocating. It wasn't just the reflection that reached for me. There were others. The walls, which had been stretching and twisting, began to form shapes, shadowed figures with no faces, just outlines of people. And every one of them was reaching, their hands outstretched toward me, toward the mask, toward the hollow space that had consumed everything I thought I knew. I tried to scream, but the sound was swallowed by the weight of the silence that followed the whispers. I knew they were all around me. They were closing in, the hollow ones. They were inside me now. The reflection, that hollow, faceless version of myself, stepped closer. The figure in front of me remained motionless, its gaze still locked onto mine through the mask. But it was the reflection that spoke this time. Its voice was distorted, like the screeching of metal on metal. But somehow, I could hear it clearly. You think this is the end, but it is only the beginning. The words sank into me, deep and gnawing, like a worm burrowing into soft flesh. They were the same words I had heard earlier, only this time, they didn't feel like a warning. They felt like an invitation into something much darker. I stumbled back, my feet dragging, but my body refused to move in the way I wanted. Every step felt unnatural, like I was walking through a dream where nothing quite made sense, where every step was a struggle against the gravity of what was happening to me. The hollow ones closed in. I could feel their presence at the edges of my mind, pressing against me, pulling me toward them. It wasn't just their bodies. It was their essence, their souls, if you could call them that. They were fragments of something old, something forgotten. They had no faces, no identities, but they had purpose. And I was part of their purpose now. The room was closing in, the walls pushing inward with every heartbeat, but I couldn't escape. I had made a choice when I took the mask, and now I was paying for it. The reflection reached up and removed the mask from its own face, revealing what lay beneath. I couldn't comprehend it at first. It was a face, yes, but not a human one. It was hollow, like a void in place of features, an empty space that should have been filled with eyes, a mouth, a nose. There was nothing but darkness behind the mask, swirling like smoke trapped inside glass, and as it stared at me, through me, I could feel that same emptiness, that same void, beginning to consume me. "You are one of us now," the reflection said. Its voice was no longer distorted, no longer rasping. It was smooth, calm, like the voice of a dead man speaking from the other side of life. "You belong to the hollow ones." I wanted to fight it. I wanted to tear the mask off, to scream, to wake up, to escape. But there was no escape from this. Not anymore. The reflection grinned. It wasn't a smile. It was a hollow expression, the edges of its face contorting as though its skin were stretching across the emptiness of its skull. It reached toward me once more, and this time, its fingers didn't stop at my arm. They gripped my throat. I gasped for breath, but there was none. The weight of the mask was unbearable now. It was pressing down on me, forcing me to stay still, to remain in the presence of the reflection, of the hollow ones. I tried to claw at it, tried to rip it off, but my hands weren't my own. My body wasn't my own. The hollow ones were inside me. They were taking control. "There is no turning back," the reflection whispered. "The mask has claimed you." I felt it then, deep in my chest, like a shift in my very soul. The mask was part of me now, as much a part of my being as the blood in my veins or the thoughts in my head. It was becoming me. It was turning me into something I couldn't recognize. I struggled to breathe, but my body betrayed me. My vision began to blur. the room spinning as though I were being pulled into the dark vortex behind the reflection's eyes. And then I heard the laughter. It wasn't one voice. It was hundreds, thousands. The hollow ones cackling, whispering, calling to each other, their voices a single, unified chorus. I stumbled back, but I wasn't in control anymore. I was being dragged forward, step by step, toward the door, toward the void that awaited me. "We are one," they sang. "We are eternal. We are the hollow ones." My vision dimmed, and the last thing I saw before the darkness overtook me was the reflection, or what I had become, smiling back at me. Its eyes, empty, hollow, and behind them, nothing. The darkness was heavy. I could feel it pressing against me, pulling me into its depths. There were no sounds, no sensations, just an endless void. For a moment I wondered if I was dead, but then a flicker of light pierced through the blackness. It was faint, just a tiny glimmer, like a distant star at the edge of an endless night. My mind clung to it, desperate for something to focus on, anything to bring me back, to remind me I was still here, still alive. I tried to reach for it, but my hands wouldn't move. I tried to speak, but no sound came from my mouth. It was as if I were trapped in some kind of stasis, suspended between life and death, unable to escape. And then I felt it. A presence. A cold, unfeeling presence that surrounded me, pressing against me, consuming me. It wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was a physical sensation, like my very body was being devoured by the emptiness. I could feel the hollow ones, all of them, inside me. Their whispers filled my mind, too many to count, all speaking at once, their voices blending into a single, unified force. They were awake now. They had taken root inside me, and their consciousness was mine. There was no longer any distinction between them and me. We were one, and I could feel the weight of it in every fiber of my being. "You belong to us," they said, their voices a constant hum beneath my thoughts. "We are the hollow ones. We are eternal." It was the same words I had heard before, the same words I had been dreading. But now, they felt different. Now, they felt true. The mask, the thing that had taken me, that had stolen my soul, had fused with me. It wasn't something I could remove. It wasn't something I could escape. I was no longer just me. I was them. I tried to scream, but the hollow ones drowned me out. Their laughter was deafening now, filling my mind until it felt like I was being torn apart from the inside. And then I saw it. A shape emerging from the darkness. A figure standing before me. It was tall and gaunt, its body draped in shadows, its face hidden beneath a mask. But this time, the mask was different. It wasn't the same smooth surface as before. This mask was ruined, shattered, with cracks running through it like spider webs. The figure moved toward me, its steps slow and deliberate, as if it knew I couldn't escape. "You've seen the truth," the figure said, its voice deep and hollow, echoing in my mind. "You are one of us now." I wanted to run. I wanted to fight, but there was no escape. There was no fight left in me. I was already broken, already claimed by the hollow ones. The figure reached out, and I felt its cold, skeletal hand touch my face. The moment it made contact, a rush of images flooded my mind. Memories that weren't mine, lives that I had never lived, and voices that were not my own. It was the memories of the hollow ones. They had lived for centuries, perhaps longer. They had once been human, but they had lost themselves, lost their identities, until only the emptiness remained. And now, that emptiness was inside me. The figure spoke again, its voice reverberating in the depths of my mind. "You will forget who you were. You will forget everything you once knew. You will become the hollow guest, just as we have become." I could feel it happening. My memories were slipping away, like sand through my fingers. I couldn't hold on to them. They were fading, vanishing, leaving behind nothing but darkness. I tried to fight it, to hold on to the fragments of who I was, but it was no use. The hollow ones were too powerful. They were consuming me, pulling me deeper into the void, into the endless night. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the darkness shattered. I gasped for breath, my lungs burning as I pulled myself out of the void. My eyes snapped open and I found myself back in the room where it had all begun, the same cold, lifeless walls, the same eerie silence. But something was different. The mask, the one that had once been a part of me, was lying on the floor in front of me, shattered into pieces. The fragments scattered across the ground like broken glass. I reached for it, but my hand hesitated. I didn't want to touch it. I didn't want to pick up the pieces of my past. The mask had taken everything from me. It had taken my soul, my memories, my identity. But as I sat there, staring at the broken pieces, I realized something. The hollow ones weren't gone. They were still inside me. And they weren't just in my mind. They were in the room with me, in the air around me, in the very walls themselves. I could feel their presence, their whispers growing louder. They were waiting for me to accept it, to become them. I stood up, my legs shaky, my body trembling as I took a step toward the door. But as I reached for the handle, I stopped. Something was wrong. The air felt thick, heavy. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to stretch toward me, pulling at me, as if they were alive. The hollow ones were watching me. "There is no escape," they whispered. And then I heard it. A faint sound, like footsteps behind me. I turned around, but there was nothing there, just the empty room, the broken mask at my feet. But the footsteps didn't stop. They were getting closer. I didn't want to turn around again. I didn't want to face whatever was behind me, but I knew I had no choice. I had to. I slowly, carefully turned to face the darkness. And that's when I saw it. A figure standing in the doorway. It was tall, its face hidden beneath a mask that looked like mine, but distorted, broken, shattered. Its eyes were hollow, empty, staring at me with a depth that I couldn't comprehend. I knew then that I wasn't alone. "Welcome," the figure whispered. And with that, the darkness swallowed me whole. The figure stood before me, its presence overwhelming, suffocating. I couldn't look away from its hollow eyes, deep, empty voids that seemed to suck the very essence out of the room. Every step it took was slow, deliberate, as if savoring each moment of my fear. My heart pounded in my chest, but my body refused to move. I couldn't escape. I couldn't even breathe. "Welcome," it whispered again, the sound of its voice reverberating through my skull. It was like the very air around me had changed, thickened, as though the world itself were holding its breath. I could feel the weight of the silence pressing against me, and the more I tried to pull away, the heavier it became. The walls of the room seemed to close in on me, the darkness creeping closer with each passing second. I wanted to scream, to run, but it was as though I had no control over my own body anymore. The hollow ones were still inside me, their whispers filling my head, drowning out my thoughts. I felt their hunger, their need to consume, to claim me fully. They were no longer just a presence in my mind. They were part of me. The figure took another step forward, its hand extending toward me, fingers long and cold, like the talons of some ancient creature. It reached out and my heart skipped a beat. I didn't want to let it touch me, but I couldn't stop it. As its hand closed around my wrist, I felt a shock of icy energy race up my arm, numbing me from the inside out. The cold seeped into my bones, freezing me, filling me with a hollow emptiness I had never known. The figure's grip tightened, pulling me closer to it, and I could feel its presence in every part of me, suffocating my thoughts, my emotions, until I was reduced to nothing more than a shell. "You are one of us now," it said, its voice like gravel, rasping and cold. "We are eternal. We will never leave you." I opened my mouth to scream, to plead, but no sound came. The hollow ones had stolen my voice, just as they had stolen everything else. I was losing myself. I could feel it happening. Like the last fragments of my humanity were slipping away, replaced by something cold, something ancient, something hungry. It was as though the figure before me wasn't just a physical presence. It was an embodiment of everything I was becoming. It was the final piece of the puzzle, the thing that would bind me to the hollow forever. But then, as if the darkness had listened to my thoughts, a strange sensation gripped me. The world around me seemed to fracture, the edges of the room blurring into a haze of shadow. The figure before me began to distort, its form twisting like smoke in the wind. The mask it wore, my mask, shattered, falling into pieces at its feet, scattering across the floor like broken glass. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a flicker of hope. I wasn't completely lost. There was a part of me still fighting, still alive. It wasn't much, but it was enough. I could still feel the pulse of my own thoughts beneath the weight of the hollow ones. It wasn't gone yet. It hadn't completely consumed me. The figure tilted its head, its hollow eyes narrowing as though it could sense the change, the struggle. It reached out again, its hand now a blur of motion, its fingers stretching unnaturally long. But this time I pulled away. My hand jerked back, and for the briefest of moments I regained control of my body. I staggered backward, my legs trembling beneath me as I stumbled toward the door. The room seemed to stretch and warp around me, the shadows twisting into grotesque shapes, trying to trap me, to pull me back into their embrace, but I refused to let them. I had to get out. I had to escape. The door loomed ahead of me, a dark portal to the unknown, but it was my only chance. I reached for the handle, my hand shaking as I gripped it. The cold metal sent a shock through my fingertips, but it was nothing compared to the ice that had filled my veins when I touched the figure. I twisted the knob. Nothing. The door didn't budge. "You cannot escape," the figure said, its voice now a low growl, thick with malice. "You belong to us. You always have." I pressed harder against the door, throwing my full weight into it, but it didn't move. It was as if the door itself were alive, resisting me, unwilling to let me leave. The figure took a step forward, its movements slow but inevitable, like a predator closing in on its prey. I was trapped. I turned around, desperation flooding my mind. The room felt smaller now, the walls pressing in on me as if they were alive, constricting around me with every breath I took. The figure was closing in, its form twisting and warping in ways that defied reason. I could feel it now, its influence extending beyond the physical world. It was in my mind, in my thoughts, pulling me back toward the emptiness, urging me to surrender. "There is no escape from the hollow," it said, its voice now a chorus of whispers, growing louder by the second. "You are ours, and we are yours." My mind was reeling. The hollow ones were here. They were with me. I could feel their whispers growing louder, their presence inside my skull, clawing at my thoughts, erasing the last remnants of who I had been. And then I remembered something. The rope, the letters, the warning. "You know where the rope lies buried." I had thought it was a riddle, a metaphor, a madness of my own making. But now, as the figure reached for me, I knew it was more than that. The rope was real. It had always been real, and it was my only way out. I turned toward the corner of the room, the shadowy figure still moving toward me. its form becoming more distorted with each step. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I had no choice. I had to find it. I didn't know where it was, but I had to dig. My hands moved instinctively, my fingers clawing at the floorboards, as if they already knew where to go. The cold beneath my fingertips sent jolts of numbness through my body. But I ignored it. There was no time to think. I had to find the rope. The hollow ones were right behind me. The room was suffocating, the air thick with the presence of the figure as it loomed in front of me, a grotesque manifestation of everything that had haunted me for so long. The whispers of the hollow ones filled the space around me, suffusing the air with a pressure so heavy I thought I might collapse under it. They were everywhere, in the walls, the shadows, the very fibers of my being. I could feel their hunger, their endless need to consume, to claim me entirely. But my fingers gripped the rope tightly, the frayed fibers biting into my skin. It pulsed in my hands, cold and heavy. And for the first time since the darkness had started its reign over my life, I felt a spark of resistance. I wasn't just holding the rope, I was holding my will. The figure before me took another step and I staggered back instinctively. It was almost upon me now, its hollow eyes glinting with a predatory hunger. Its mask, a twisted reflection of my own face, flickered, warping into something grotesque and unrecognizable. "You cannot run," it hissed, its voice low and jagged like 1,000 broken whispers. "You are ours. You always have been. The hollow will claim you, body and soul." I shook my head, trying to clear the fog from my mind. The hollow ones were pulling at me, their influence trying to overwhelm me, but I could feel the rope, a physical reminder that I could fight back. The figure was close enough now that I could see the edges of its mask crumbling, revealing the void beneath, the emptiness, my own reflection, distorted and broken. But it didn't matter. I wasn't going to give in. "You think you can resist?" The figure's voice had turned mocking, a cruel sneer woven into every word. "There is no escaping the hollow. You are nothing without it." I took a deep breath, clutching the rope tighter. The air seemed to shift around me, vibrating with tension, as though something ancient, was about to break free. "I am something," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "I am me." The figure paused, its form flickering for a brief moment as though surprised by my defiance. It took a step back, and for the first time, I saw doubt in its hollow eyes. I wasn't sure how. But the rope, the very thing I had thought was just a means of escape, had become something more. It was a tether to my humanity, to my strength, and it was the only thing that could stop the hollow ones. I lunged forward, swinging the rope, with all the strength I could muster, aiming for the figure's chest. The moment the rope made contact, a crack echoed through the room, and the figure screamed. Its form twisted violently, as if the very fabric of its existence was being torn apart. The hollow ones screamed, their voices shrill and desperate, and for the first time, I felt their grip on me weaken. I pulled the rope tighter, forcing the figure back. It stumbled, and I could see the cracks forming in its mask, splitting apart, revealing the nothingness beneath. But still, it tried to reach for me, its arms stretching, its fingers clawing at the air. "You cannot win," it shouted. "You belong to us." But I wasn't listening anymore. I knew what I had to do. The hollow ones wanted to consume me, but they couldn't. Not if I made the choice to fight. Not if I chose to let go of the darkness that had been wrapping itself around my soul for so long. With one final, desperate motion, I yanked the rope with every ounce of strength I had left, and in that instant, I felt it. The rupture. The room shuddered violently, and everything around me, every whisper, every shadow, began to unravel. The figure's scream was deafening as its form broke apart, shattering like glass. The Hollow One's voices faded into nothing, their presence flickering away like a dying flame. The mask, my mask, disintegrated into ash, leaving only the remnants of what had once been. And then there was silence. The darkness that had held me captive for so long was gone. The Hollow Ones, the figure, the nightmares, they were all gone, swept away in the wake of the rupture I had caused. The rope that had once felt so cold in my hands now lay limp at my feet, its power fading along with everything else. I stood there for a long time, my heart racing, my body trembling with exhaustion. The room was still, the air lighter than it had been in what felt like an eternity. I looked around, not sure if I was still dreaming. But the silence was real. The absence of the Hollow Ones was real. And yet, as I stood there, in the quiet, I realized something. The Hollow Guest had been a part of me, a part of this place, for so long. I had fought against it, but in doing so, I had come to understand that there was no final victory. The darkness wasn't something I could defeat forever. It wasn't something that could be banished for good. The real victory was in the choice to fight, the choice to remain. The Hollow Guest had always been within me. But it was up to me whether I let it consume me or whether I learned to live with it. It was no longer about escaping. It was about standing in the face of it all and making the choice to keep going, to stay alive, despite the darkness, despite the hunger that would always linger. I looked down at the rope in my hand and let it fall to the ground. There was no more need for it. There was no more need to run. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace. The Hollow Guest was gone, but I was still here, and that was enough. Thank you for listening to The Night Reader. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt lost in the dark, remember, you're not alone. The stories we carry are what connect us. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment letting me know. Where are you listening from? And what story do you carry? Until next time, keep your light close and your shadows closer.